It's as if we could see the whole of music developing from prehistory to the present in 2 minutes.
I watched Maestro the other day and I was really impressed. As of writing this essay, I still have a few 2023 releases to catch up on, but as of writing this essay, I think Maestro is my favorite film of the year. I think it's brilliant from a filmmaking perspective, but also subjectively, I can't remember the last time a movie made me feel as intensely as Maestro did, to the point of tears. And as I was sitting in the theater sulking at Bradley Cooper's second masterpiece, I remembered that I actually don't love biopics. I have nothing particularly against biopics, but historical true stories based on one particular person's life are just not my personal forte. Thinking that, I realized that it's been a while since a biopic blew me away. There have been several in recent years that I've enjoyed generally, but none of them have made me really burst with appreciation or feeling. And that made me wonder, why is Maestro such a good biopic? I think it's a matter of perspective, and particularly intimacy through perspective. A lot of recent biopics do a wonderful job at depicting the story of the life of their subject, but none really make us, as viewers, feel close to the subject or understand them on a deeper level. I thought Maestro did that exactly, and a key reason was that most of the film is not actually from a traditionally objective perspective. Quite the contrary, it is from very much a subjective perspective, that of Leonard Bernstein's wife, Felicia Montealegre. Now, I'm actually hesitant to use words like objective and subjective here, because overall, an objective perspective would be the one like in Elvis, for example, a film that is just a general retelling of Elvis's life. A subjective perspective, on the other hand, would be like the one in Priscilla, which I have yet to see, but I imagine that's the case as that is mostly from his partner's point of view. Now, I'd actually argue that a subjective perspective is more truthful than an objective perspective, as those who are closest to us actually know us best, oftentimes better than we even know ourselves. Maybe the words biased and unbiased are better than objective and subjective. I think that's key in building this sense of intimacy in Maestro. We feel close to Leonard and understand him because his wife is close to him and understands him best, definitely better than he understands himself. There is a sense of voyeurism to the film as Felicia watches Leonard. I feel like moments like this one are particularly important, or take a look at this moment in which director Bradley Cooper decides to pull the focus away from Leonard in his moment of glory, as Leonard's perspective to that moment is less truthful than his wife's perspective. Felicia's reaction is far more honest than the moment itself, and also far more important to the story of the lead character. One of my favorite details in Maestro is that the culmination of this beautiful piece that Bernstein conducts is not the music itself, nor is it Bernstein himself, but is actually a reveal that all of this is through his wife's point of view, as she is there too. This highlights the moment and makes a great sequence even better. The importance of the scene is transferred away from Leonard and to his wife watching him. As viewers, we know her now, and we know their relationship, and so there is a sense of intimacy to this moment too, which provides the scene even more depth and a heavier weight. This scene evokes a much grander emotion than the finale of Bohemian Rhapsody, for example, as that's from a far more neutral, almost documentarian perspective. And I think, of course, it's important to mention that while a large part of the film is from Felicia's point of view, it's not the entire movie. A lot of it is from Bernstein's perspective, as we need to understand how he sees himself too. But I find moments like these, for example, these 3 interviews conducted throughout the picture, to be really interesting, as those are the moments when Bernstein is actually most truthful to himself.
Any performer, whether it's Toscanini or Tallulah Bankhead or whoever it is, leads a kind of public life. A creative person sits alone in this great studio that you see here and writes all by himself. And
he struggles to admit a lot, but finds it easier to open up to someone else.
But summer does still sing in me. Not as strongly as it used to, or as often. But it sure does.
This is, of course, again, so we gain an external perspective, making the moment feel more human. But I think it's also fair to say that this develops the character further, as it's linked to one of the film's central motifs, Bernstein's love of people.
And the other is that I love people so much that it's hard for me to be alone.
So this sense of intimacy makes us understand the characters much better, but it also makes us really care for them. I honestly think the reveal when we find Felicia is dying is one of the most heartbreaking scenes I've seen in a while. And I think that's because I got to care a great deal for Felicia. Of course, perspective goes both ways in a film like this, where Felicia is almost as central to the story as Leonard himself, and so we see her through his eyes too. And that makes this entire sequence deeply saddening and proves, once again, that Bradley Cooper definitely knows how to direct tragedy.
I love you.
It's like television and cigarettes.
And I'd like to take a moment to talk about exposition and how Maestro handles that too. A usual biopic guides us through the story of the subject's life in a somewhat straightforward manner. Nothing wrong with this, as the point is usually for the audience to learn about the character. In Maestro, however, a lot of the exposition takes a step back. We of course learn about the character's life, but that's not in central position. What's most important is learning who the character is. Maestro doesn't underestimate its audience and allows for a lot of key information to be somewhat veiled. I'd argue there are 4 key themes to this film: Leonard's relationship with Felicia, his rise to success, his sexuality, and his internal "am I a composer or a conductor, and what does that really mean anyway?" struggle. All of these themes are developed somewhat under the surface of what is simply a fantastic character piece. Even Leonard's relationship with his wife isn't expositionally out there. A lot of depth and ideas require thought and engagement from the audience. This is where a lot of biopics usually struggle, as it's really difficult to explore someone's entire life in 2 or 3 hours and develop these subjects' character qualities. I think an approach like this one that focuses on developing a human character first and a famous composer second, one that focuses on the why rather than the how, works better, as we are often smart enough to connect the dots within the plot, and when the protagonist is fleshed out, that's quite easy too. In Maestro, even surface-level exposition, such as Bernstein's sexuality, is handled with ease and through detail. Take a look at this scene, for example.
You know, your mother told me that you were very upset because you had some rumors about me at Tanglewood this summer.
Oh, I really wish you wouldn't have said anything.
No,
It was
Jamie.
fine. It was no big deal.
The question of the scene is never actually spoken, but we of course understand what the characters are talking about. The film is built through such an unspoken approach throughout, and it's one of the things that really elevates it.
Some chickens. That's what we call them.
Always good with the chicken.
And lastly, I think one of my favorite things about this picture, and something I haven't really seen done before in a biopic to this extent, is how brilliantly and accurately it recreates the reality of the subject through the visuals themselves. I thought it was amazing to see Bernstein's early life in 40s and 50s be in black and white, carrying a more romantic and distant atmosphere. We then shifted to color in the same 4:3 aspect ratio for the majority of Bernstein's life, which is again visually representative of the times when all of this was happening. I thought to myself while watching that it would be brilliant to see the aspect ratio open up near the end of the film, as that's another different time, both historically and in Bernstein's life. And I was invigorated to see Cooper do exactly that and change the visual style again in the epilogue. There are many other amazing approaches through visuals in Maestro, such as the use of long takes to create a sense of realism and immersion in the story, but not so long that they become noticeable and a gimmick. I also found it interesting to observe the angle of perspective in each scene be developed through whichever character's perspective we were observing things from. And I'm sure I'll notice a lot more of this on a third rewatch. A biopic is a very, very difficult project to make. There is simply too much there and too little time to coherently explore everything. A good script is vital, good directing is a must, a fantastic performance, which, by the way, Cooper definitely does, is even more important in a project like this one than usual. And I think where a lot of biopics fail is that they simply want too much all at once. They want emotion and truth and a full story with ups and downs and relationships and more and more and more. And Maestro has all of that, but it doesn't feel overwhelming as the project is rooted and grounded in Leonard Bernstein as a human being. Everything else follows. And at the end of the day, shouldn't we care more about who the person was than what they did? Thank you so much for watching another video essay, guys. I really appreciate it. Please remember to like the video if you've enjoyed it and to subscribe to the channel. We're trying to do 2 video essays a month consistently, so stay tuned if you want to watch more. Thank you all. I love you all.